Imagine a situation where a single document changes everything inside the royal family. A secret that was believed to be buried for years suddenly comes back into discussion, and this time it involves Prince Edward and King Charles. What really happened behind closed doors is now gaining attention online, and many people are trying to understand the truth behind it. The British royal family has always been surrounded by history, tradition, and important responsibilities. Over the years, there have been many discussions about inheritance, royal duties, and how assets and roles are managed within the monarchy. King Charles, as the current monarch, has spent decades handling both royal responsibilities and estate matters connected to the crown. These responsibilities are not simple personal decisions, but part of a long-established system. Recently, attention has shifted toward Prince Edward due to renewed public discussion around inheritance-related topics connected to the royal family. Online conversations and reports have suggested that certain royal matters involving long-standing arrangements are being discussed again. This has created curiosity among royal watchers, even though most of these topics are complex and not easily explained in simple headlines. What makes the situation more interesting for people is the way it is being discussed on social media. Some believe it signals changes within royal responsibilities, while others feel it is just public misunderstanding of how royal structures actually work. The truth is that royal estates, titles, and responsibilities are managed under strict legal and historical frameworks, and they do not change in a simple or sudden way. King Charles has always played a central role in managing royal estates and duties. Many of these responsibilities involve charities, properties, and institutions that are tied to the monarchy rather than personal ownership. Because of this, any mention of inheritance or transfer naturally attracts public attention, even when the reality is more administrative and dramatic. Prince Edward, as a senior member of the royal family, also has official duties and responsibilities. However, the way royal roles are structured means that changes or adjustments often follow formal processes rather than sudden personal decisions. This is why many experts suggest that online claims should be viewed carefully and not taken at face value without official confirmation. At the same time, it is important to understand how quickly information spreads online. In today's digital world, even small updates or unclear reports can turn into major viral stories. This often leads to confusion, where speculation becomes louder than verified facts. As a result, audiences sometimes see dramatic versions of events that may not fully reflect reality. That is why separating fact from speculation is very important. While discussions about royal matters are always interesting to the public, official details are usually shared carefully and rarely in dramatic form. Most of what circulates online tends to be interpretation rather than confirmed information. Still, the curiosity around the royal family continues to grow. People are always interested in how tradition, power, and responsibility work within one of the most famous institutions in the world. Whether it is about King Charles, Prince Edward, or any other member, public attention remains strong whenever new discussions appear. In the end, the real question becomes what is actually confirmed and what is simply being assumed online. And as always with royal topics, the full picture is often more complex than the headline suggests. This is exactly why royal stories often spread so quickly. The combination of history, power, and mystery naturally attracts global attention. Even a small discussion or unclear report can turn into a major topic within hours. People start forming theories. Social media amplifies them, and soon the story feels bigger than the actual facts. In situations like this, one important thing to remember is how royal institutions operate. The royal family does not function like a normal public organization where changes happen overnight. Everything is structured, documented, and guided by long-standing constitutional rules. That means any real changes in inheritance, responsibilities, or roles usually follow a formal and private process before anything becomes public knowledge. This is also why many royal experts often caution viewers about online rumors. A lot of content shared on social platforms is based on interpretation rather than verified statements. Sometimes headlines are written in a way that increases curiosity, even if the actual situation is much simpler behind the scenes. Prince Edward, like other senior royals, carries out official duties that support the monarchy. These responsibilities are often long-term and carefully assigned. King Charles, on the other hand, manages a broader structure of royal institutions and estates. Because both roles are connected to the same system, people sometimes misunderstand changes in responsibilities as major inheritance shifts, even when they are not. Another reason this topic gains attention is because the word inheritance itself creates strong curiosity. It immediately makes people think of wealth, property, or power transfer. But within royal context, inheritance does not always mean what people assume. It can involve titles, duties, or administrative responsibilities rather than personal assets. As discussions continue online, different versions of the story begin to appear. Some focus on dramatic interpretations, while others try to explain it in a more realistic way. This mix of information makes it even harder for viewers to understand what is actually happening. That is why it becomes important to look at credible explanations instead of only viral posts. At the same time, the royal family remains one of the most followed institutions in the world. Any mention of King Charles or Prince Edward automatically attracts attention because people feel connected to the long history of the monarchy. This global interest is one reason why such topics remain trending for longer periods compared to normal news stories. However, when we step back and look at it carefully, most of these discussions are part of ongoing public curiosity rather than confirmed dramatic events. The reality is usually more structured and less sensational than how it appears online. Still, the fascination does not go away. People want to know what happens behind palace doors, how decisions are made, and what the future of the monarchy looks like. This curiosity is what keeps royal topics alive across generations, and that is why stories like this continue to circulate. Even without complete clarity, they spark discussion, debate, and engagement. But the key takeaway is always the same. Not everything viral reflects confirmed reality. So as viewers, it becomes important to stay informed, enjoy the curiosity, but also understand the difference between speculation and verified information. Because in royal matters, the truth often unfolds slowly, not instantly. Continuing from where we left off, it becomes even more important to understand how quickly perception can change when a topic goes viral online. Once a story starts spreading, it often takes on a life of its own. People begin adding details, interpreting small statements in different ways, and before long, the original meaning can become blurred. This is exactly what happens with many high-profile topics involving public figures. The royal family, because of its global recognition, is especially sensitive to this kind of attention. Even normal administrative updates or internal discussions can be interpreted as major developments when they reach the public in fragmented form. Another factor that plays a big role here is the influence of headlines. A headline is designed to grab attention in seconds, but sometimes, in doing so, it simplifies complex situations. That simplification can lead audiences to believe that something dramatic has happened, even when the reality is more routine or procedural. When we look at King Charles and Prince Edward in this context, both are part of a long-established system with clearly defined responsibilities. Their roles are not based on sudden changes or informal decisions. Instead, they are guided by tradition, legal structure, and constitutional practice. This is why most official matters involving them are handled privately before any public awareness. At the same time, it is also true that public curiosity around royal inheritance and internal arrangements has always been high. People are naturally interested in how history, wealth, and responsibility are passed through generations. This interest becomes even stronger when it involves well-known names like King Charles and Prince Edward. However, curiosity should always be balanced with understanding. Not every discussion online reflects confirmed events. In many cases, what circulates is a mix of assumptions, commentary, and partial information. That is why experts often recommend waiting for official sources before drawing conclusions. As this discussion continues online, it is important to recognize how storytelling shapes perception. The way information is presented can make a topic feel more dramatic than it actually is. This is not unique to royal stories. It happens across all major news topics in the digital age. Still, the fascination remains strong. The royal family represents tradition, continuity, and historical significance. That is why even minor discussions around them gain widespread attention. People feel connected to the monarchy in different ways, whether through history, culture, or simple curiosity. And this connection is what keeps these stories trending for long periods. Even when details are unclear or evolving, the public interest does not fade easily. Instead, it continues to grow as more people join the conversation. In the end, what we see online is often just one layer of a much larger picture. Behind that layer, there are formal processes, private discussions, and structured decisions that are not immediately visible to the public. Understanding this difference helps us see these stories more clearly. So while discussions like these remain interesting and engaging, the most important approach is always to stay grounded, avoid assumptions, and rely on verified information whenever possible. Continuing further, this is also the point where many viewers start asking deeper questions about how much of what they see online is actually accurate. In today's digital world, information spreads faster than verification. A single post can reach millions within hours, but confirming its accuracy can take much longer. This gap between speed and truth is often where confusion begins. When it comes to the royal family, this gap becomes even more noticeable. Because the institution is so widely followed, even small updates are discussed globally. But the internal workings of the monarchy are not designed for public speculation. They operate through formal communication channels, and most details are only shared when necessary and officially confirmed. That is why many royal analysts emphasize patience when such topics emerge online. They encourage audiences to wait for reliable statements rather than relying on viral interpretations. In most cases, the reality is far less dramatic than the way it appears in trending headlines. At the same time, it is understandable why these stories attract so much attention. The combination of history, tradition, and modern-day relevance makes royal topics unique. People are not just watching a family, they are observing an institution that has existed for centuries and continues to evolve in a modern world. This is also why discussions involving King Charles and Prince Edward often gain traction. Both represent different aspects of the monarchy, one as a reigning monarch and the other as a senior working royal. Their roles are interconnected within a system that prioritizes continuity and stability over sudden change. As the conversation around inheritance and royal responsibilities continues online, it becomes clear that most of the interest is driven by curiosity rather than confirmed developments. People want to understand how things work behind the scenes, but often only receive fragmented pieces of information. This is where responsible viewing becomes important. Instead of reacting to every headline, it is better to understand the broader context. Royal affairs are deeply structured, and what may appear as a major shift is often part of long-standing administrative planning. Over time, many viral royal stories tend to settle once more accurate explanations emerge. What initially seems like a shocking development often turns out to be a misunderstanding, exaggeration, or incomplete interpretation of facts. And yet, the fascination never truly fades. The royal family continues to be one of the most watched institutions in the world, not just for what it does, but for what it represents: history, tradition, and continuity in a rapidly changing world. So as this discussion comes to a close, the key takeaway is simple. Not everything that trends reflect confirmed reality, and not every dramatic headline tells a full story. The truth often exists in a more balanced and structured form behind the scenes. In the end, staying informed means staying patient, thinking critically, and looking beyond viral narratives. Because when it comes to topics like these, understanding is always more powerful than speculation. Another important point to understand is how modern media culture has changed the way royal stories are consumed. Earlier, people would rely mainly on newspapers or official broadcasts, which meant information was slower but more verified. Today, however, social media platforms prioritize speed and engagement, which often leads to simplified or exaggerated versions of complex situations. This shift has made royal topics more viral than ever before. A single image, quote, or headline can be shared thousands of times within minutes, each time slightly changing the context. By the time it reaches a wide audience, the original meaning can become very different from the source. Because of this, viewers are often encouraged to look at royal stories with a balanced mindset. Instead of focusing only on dramatic wording, it helps to consider whether the information is coming from an official statement or from secondary interpretations. This simple habit can make a big difference in understanding what is real and what is speculation. In the case of senior royals like King Charles and Prince Edward, their responsibilities are tied to long-standing traditions and legal frameworks. These frameworks do not change based on public discussion or online trends. Any real structural change within the monarchy follows formal procedures, often involving private discussions long before anything becomes public. This is why many experts say that the royal family operates on a completely different timeline compared to social media. What may appear as breaking news online is often something that has been developing quietly for a long time, or sometimes not happening in the way it is described at all. Still, The interest from the public is completely natural. The monarchy represents a living piece of history, and people are always curious about how it continues to function in the modern world. This curiosity is what keeps royal-related content consistently popular across YouTube, news platforms, and social media. But with popularity also comes responsibility. Content creators and viewers both play a role in shaping how information spreads. Responsible storytelling means presenting ideas in a way that informs rather than misleads, and responsible viewing means questioning before believing. As more people become aware of how online narratives are built, there's a growing shift toward more thoughtful consumption of news. Viewers are starting to look beyond sensational headlines and focus more on context, background, and credibility. Over time, this approach helps reduce confusion and creates a clearer understanding of complex topics like royal affairs. Instead of reacting instantly to viral claims, audiences can take a step back and see the bigger picture. In the end, the royal family remains an institution that naturally attracts attention, discussion, and debate. But separating fact from speculation is always the key to truly understanding any story connected to it. And as this discussion continues to circulate online, one thing remains consistent. Real insight always comes from patience, context, and verified information, not from fast-moving headlines alone.